My wealthy CO husband feared touch. Until one midnight walk changed everything. But that night, that one specific night at 3:07 a.m., everything she thought she knew about their relationship got turned upside down. What would you do if you discovered your husband's untouchable walls weren't built by trauma, but by choice? A choice he made for reasons that would make your blood run cold. What good is all that wealth when the person you love won't even hold your hand? Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. The youngest billionaire CEO in Lagos hadn't touched his wife in 2 years, not even a handshake. Have you ever felt invisible in your own marriage? Living with someone who treats you like a stranger in your own home? Well, that's exactly what happened to Lena, and what she discovered about her husband Joel would shock you to your core. Before we dive into this mind-blowing story, drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from. And if you're ready for a story that will make you question everything you think you know about love and marriage, hit that subscribe button right now, because this one's going to leave you speechless. Lena's luxury prison was about to crack wide open on one midnight walk that would change everything she believed about the man she married. You see, Joel wasn't just any husband. At 24, he ran $1 billion tech empire. Women would kill to be in Lena's position, living in a mansion, driving luxury cars, wearing designer clothes. But here's the thing nobody talks about. What good is all that wealth when the person you love won't even hold your hand? For 2 whole years, Lena lived like a ghost in her own marriage. No good morning kisses, no cuddles on the couch, no intimate moments that make a marriage feel real. Joel treated her like a business partner who happened to share his address. But that night, that one specific night at 3:07 a.m., everything she thought she knew about their relationship got turned upside down. What would you do if you discovered your husband's untouchable walls weren't built by trauma, but by choice? A choice he made for reasons that would make your blood run cold. The man who couldn't bear to touch his own wife was hiding secrets so deep, so twisted, that when the truth finally came out, it nearly destroyed them both. We're talking about hidden journals, secret payments, and a woman from his past who was living just 2 streets away with his child, a child Lena never knew existed. This story isn't just about a broken marriage. It's about manipulation, guilt, and the dangerous games people play with other people's hearts. It's about a woman who had to choose between saving herself or fighting for a man who might never be whole. Are you ready to find out what really happened that night? Are you prepared to discover how far someone will go to punish themselves for past mistakes? Because I'm about to take you on a journey that will make you question everything you believe about love, loyalty, and the lengths we go to protect the people we care about. Let's start from the beginning, when Lena thought her biggest problem was loneliness. Every morning at exactly 6:15 a.m., Lena would hear Joel's alarm go off in the master bedroom down the hall. Yes, you heard that right, down the hall. They'd been married for 2 years, and she slept in the guest room like some kind of live-in house guest. The routine never changed. Joel would shower, dress in one of his perfectly pressed suits, and walk past her room without so much as a good morning. She'd watch from her window as his black Escalade disappeared through the mansion's gates, leaving her alone for another day in paradise, if you could call it that. The house was beautiful, don't get me wrong. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, a kitchen that belonged in a magazine. But beauty means nothing when you're living in emotional isolation. Lena had everything money could buy, except the one thing that mattered most, her husband's touch. She tried everything those first few months, cooking his favorite meals, wearing the dresses he used to compliment, even suggesting they go to counseling together. But Joel had a way of shutting down conversations before they even started. He'd give her that polite smile, the same one he used with business associates, and change the subject. "We're fine, Lena," he'd say, already reaching for his phone or laptop. Everything's fine, but everything wasn't fine. How could it be when your own husband flinches if you accidentally brush against him in a hallway? When he sits 3 cushions away from you on the couch? When he kisses your forehead like you're his sister instead of his wife? Lena started keeping a journal just to have someone to talk to, even if that someone was herself. She wrote about the loneliness that felt like a weight on her chest. About the nights she'd lie awake wondering if she was losing her mind. About the way Joel would look at her sometimes, like he wanted to reach out but couldn't make himself do it. The worst part? The pity in other people's eyes when they saw them together at social events. Couples would unconsciously move closer to each other when they noticed how Joel and Lena stood apart. She became an expert at making excuses for why they didn't dance together, why he never put his arm around her, why they arrived and left separately. But here's what nobody knew, not even Lena at the time. Joel's distance wasn't random. It wasn't just some quirk or phase he was going through. There was a method to his madness, a reason behind every cold shoulder and avoided embrace. Late that Tuesday night, as Lena sat in her room, writing in her journal about another day of being ignored, she heard something that made her blood freeze. Footsteps in the hallway. But not normal footsteps, frantic, desperate footsteps like someone was pacing back and forth. Have you ever questioned if luxury can mask loneliness? Because what Lena heard next would make her realize that her husband's coldness was hiding something much darker than she ever imagined. Joel Harrison commanded respect the moment he walked into any room. At 24, he was the youngest CEO in Lagos's tech industry, and he wore that title like armor. His employees called him the machine behind his back, not because he was heartless, but because he seemed to operate on a different level than everyone else. In the boardroom, he was unstoppable. Deals that other companies spent months negotiating, Joel would close in a single afternoon. His mind worked like a computer, processing information faster than anyone around him. When he spoke, people listened. When he made decisions, they got results. But there was something else about Joel that made people uncomfortable, even if they couldn't put their finger on what it was. He never shook hands, never patted anyone on the back, never did those casual touches that people use to build connections. His assistant learned early on to keep physical distance, and his security team knew to never try to guide him through crowds. Personal space is important to Mr. Harrison, his assistant would tell new employees. It became an office rule that everyone followed without question. That particular Thursday morning, Joel was in the middle of a merger meeting when his assistant knocked on the conference room door. She looked nervous, more nervous than usual, and held a small white envelope in her hands. "Sir, this just arrived for you." The courier said it was urgent. Joel took the envelope without looking at her, but the moment he saw the handwriting on the front, his entire body went rigid. His hand started trembling so badly that he had to place the envelope flat on the table. "Meeting's over," he announced, his voice barely above a whisper. "Everyone out." The executives looked confused, but they knew better than to question Joel when he used that tone. As soon as the room emptied, Joel stared at the envelope like it might explode. The handwriting was feminine, delicate, and heartbreakingly familiar. There was no return address, but in the bottom corner, someone had drawn a small heart with the letter Z inside it. Joel's breathing became shallow. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the air conditioning. He wanted to tear the envelope open and read whatever was inside, but he also wanted to burn it without looking. Because he absolutely knew, that whatever was in that envelope would destroy the carefully constructed walls he'd built around his life. What do you think could break a man so completely? What kind of past could make someone successful and powerful still shake like a child when faced with a simple piece of mail? Joel's hands were still trembling when he finally opened the envelope. Let me take you back to Joel and Lena's wedding night, because that's when everything should have made sense to her. But somehow, it didn't. They'd had the wedding of the year. Designer dress, 5-star venue, guests flying in from around the world. Lena felt like a princess walking down that aisle, and Joel looked like he'd stepped out of a magazine in his custom tuxedo. The ceremony was perfect, but when they got to their honeymoon suite, something shifted. Joel suddenly became distant, almost mechanical. He kissed her forehead, that same brotherly kiss she'd grown to know so well, and suggested they get some rest since they had an early flight. Tomorrow will be better, he promised, but tomorrow never came. The honeymoon was beautiful but cold. Joel would hold her hand for photos, but the moment the camera was away, he'd find reasons to create distance. Separate beds because of his back problems. Separate bathrooms to give her privacy. separate everything. Lena convinced herself it was just nerves. New marriage jitters. He'd warm up once they got home and settled into their routine. But weeks turned into months, and months turned into 2 years of the same polite, distant treatment. She tried everything. Romantic dinners where she'd wear his favorite perfume and cook his favorite food. Movie nights where she'd deliberately sit closer to him on the couch. Even direct conversations about their lack of intimacy. "Is it something I did?" she asked one night, her voice breaking. "Did I say something wrong? Are you not attracted to me anymore?" Joel's answer was always the same. "You're perfect, Lena. I'm just dealing with some things. It's not about you." But how could it not be about her? She was his wife. If he couldn't be close to her, who could he be close to? Lena started writing in her journal every night, pouring out her frustrations and fears onto the pages. She wrote about feeling like a stranger in her own marriage, about wondering if she was going crazy, about the growing suspicion that Joel was hiding something massive from her. The breaking point came on a random Tuesday night. Lena was lying in her bed, her lonely, cold bed, when she heard Joel talking in his sleep. Not just mumbling, but actual words. Clear, desperate words that made her heart stop. "Zulema," he whispered, his voice full of pain. "I'm so sorry, Zulema. I never meant for this to happen. How long would you stay in a loveless marriage? How many nights would you lie awake wondering if your husband was dreaming about another woman?" Because that's the night Lena realized she wasn't just competing with Joel's walls. She was competing with a ghost. 3 weeks after hearing Joel whisper that name, Lena couldn't sleep. It was 3:07 a.m. when she gave up trying and decided to make herself some tea. The house was dead quiet, which was normal. Joel was usually fast asleep by this time. But as she walked toward the kitchen, she noticed something strange. The front door was wide open, and a cool breeze was flowing through the hallway. Her heart started racing. Had someone broken in? Was Joel hurt? She grabbed a knife from the kitchen counter and slowly made her way to the door. What she saw outside made her drop the knife completely. Joel was standing in the middle of the street, barefoot and wearing nothing but pajama pants. He was staring at something across the road, his whole body shaking like he was freezing. But it was a warm Lagos night. "Joel?" she called out, but he didn't respond. It was like he was in a trance. Lena quickly slipped on her shoes and ran to him. Up close, she could see that he was crying. Not just tears, full-on sobbing that made his shoulders shake. She'd never seen him show this much emotion about anything. "Joel, what's wrong? What are you doing out here?" He turned to look at her, and his eyes were completely vacant, like he was seeing right through her. "She was so young," he whispered. "So young and so trusting. How could I have been so selfish?" Lena followed his gaze across the street and saw what he was staring at, an old, abandoned motel. The kind of place that had been boarded up for years, with broken windows and weeds growing through the parking lot cracks. The sign was so faded you could barely read it. "Joel, there's nothing there. It's just an old building. Come inside, please." But Joel kept staring at the motel like he was watching a movie play out in his mind. His breathing was getting faster, more panicked. "I should have protected her," he said, his voice getting louder. "I should have been stronger. I should have said no." Said no to what? "Joel, you're scaring me." That's when he grabbed her arm. The first time he'd voluntarily touched her in 2 years. His grip was desperate, almost painful. "I destroyed everything good in her life," he said, looking directly into her eyes. "Everything. And now I can't. I can't let myself do that to anyone else." "Do what to anyone else?" "Joel, I don't understand." He started walking back toward the house, but his steps were unsteady. Lena had to support him to keep him from falling. As they reached the front door, he suddenly stopped and turned to her. "I'm sorry," he said, and for a moment, his eyes looked completely normal again. "I'm so sorry, Lena. You deserve so much better than this." But then his eyes rolled back, and he collapsed right there on the doorstep. As Lena knelt beside him, trying to wake him up, she heard him whisper one word that made her blood turn to ice. "Zulema." What memories could drive someone to break like this? What happened at that abandoned motel that still haunted Joel years later? Because Lena was about to find out that some secrets are buried so deep, they can destroy everything when they finally surface. The next morning, Joel acted like nothing had happened. He got up at 6:15 a.m., showered, dressed, and left for work without mentioning his midnight breakdown. When Lena tried to bring it up, he looked at her like she was talking about someone else's life. "I think you had a bad dream," he said calmly. "I slept fine all night." But Lena knew what she'd seen. She had grass stains on her pajamas from kneeling beside him on the lawn. She had the sound of his desperate voice burned into her memory. And she had a name, Zulema. While Joel was at work, Lena did what any desperate wife would do. She started digging. She began with his high school yearbooks, which she found in a box in his closet. Page by page, she searched for anyone named Zulema. And then she found her, Zulema Rodriguez. Even in the grainy yearbook photo, she was stunning. Long dark hair, bright eyes, and a smile that could light up a room. She was in Joel's class, and according to the activities section, she was involved in everything: drama club, student council, volunteer work. Lena flipped through more pages and found photos of Joel and Zulema together. School dances, prom, graduation. In every single picture, they looked happy, more than happy. They looked like they were completely in love. But here's what made Lena's stomach drop. In all the photos, Joel was touching Zulema freely, his arm around her waist, holding her hand, kissing her cheek. This was not the same man who couldn't bear to shake hands with his own wife. Lena spent the entire day researching online. She found Zulema's social media accounts, but they all stopped abruptly about 6 years ago. No posts, no photos, no updates. It was like she'd vanished from the digital world completely. But then Lena found something that made her hands shake. A newspaper article from 6 years ago with the headline, "Local Teen Missing After Graduation Party." The article was about Zulema Rodriguez, who had disappeared after a party at a friend's house. The last person seen with her was her boyfriend, Joel Harrison. The article mentioned that Joel had been questioned by police but was never charged. Zulema's car was found abandoned near an old motel on the outskirts of town. She was never found. Lena's mind was racing. Is that why Joel couldn't touch her? Did something happen to Zulema that made him feel guilty about being close to anyone else? But then she found something that changed everything. A recent photo on a Facebook page for a local elementary school. The caption read, "Thank you to our volunteer reading assistant, Mrs. Z. Martinez, for her dedication to our students." The woman in the photo was older, with shorter hair and different clothes. But Lena would recognize those eyes anywhere. Should she confront him or investigate further? Because if Zulema was alive and living under a different name, it meant Joel had been lying about more than just his midnight breakdowns. It meant everything about their marriage was built on a lie. For 3 days, Lena couldn't get that photo out of her head. Every time she looked at Joel, she wondered what he was really thinking about. Was he remembering Zulema? Was he comparing them? Was he wishing things had been different? She needed answers, and she knew exactly where to find them. Joel's home office was always locked. In 2 years of marriage, Lena had never been inside. He claimed it was for important business documents, but now she suspected it held much more than spreadsheets and contracts. Thursday afternoon, while Joel was at his usual board meeting, Lena made her move. She'd watched him punch in the code enough times to figure out the pattern. 0521. May 21st. She wondered if that date meant something special to him and Zulema. The office was exactly what she expected. Neat, organized, and completely impersonal. But hidden behind his desk, in a drawer that required a separate key, she found something that made her heart stop. Journals. Dozens of them, dating back 6 years. All written in Joel's careful handwriting. The first entry was dated 3 days after Zulema's disappearance. "I can't eat. I can't sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I see her face. What I did to her was unforgivable. I deserve to suffer for this. I deserve to be alone." Lena flipped through more pages, her hands trembling. "Dr. Morrison says I need to forgive myself, but how can I? She trusted me completely, and I broke that trust in the worst possible way. I swore I'd never hurt another woman like that again. Started seeing Lena today. She's beautiful and kind, but I can't let myself get too close. I won't make the same mistake twice. Married Lena yesterday. She looked perfect walking down the aisle. I wanted to hold her so badly, but I remembered what happened the last time I let my guard down. Some people don't deserve happiness. The entries got more detailed as they went on. Joel wrote about his daily struggles with wanting to touch Lena, but forcing himself to stay distant. He wrote about the guilt that ate at him every single day. He wrote about the nightmares that made him wake up screaming. But the most shocking entries were the recent ones. Dr. Morrison called today. Reminded me that getting too comfortable with Lena would be a betrayal of everything I've learned. She's right. I need to stay focused on my punishment. Lena tried to hold my hand during the movie last night. I wanted to let her, but Dr. Morrison's voice was in my head. You lost the right to normal relationships when you destroyed Zulema's life. Someone left flowers at the motel again. I think it's her family, still hoping she'll come back. They don't know the truth about what I did to her. The last entry was dated yesterday. Lena's been asking questions about my past. Dr. Morrison says if she gets too close to the truth, I might have to make a difficult choice. I can't let her get hurt because of my secrets. Lena's hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the journal. Joel wasn't just haunted by his past. Someone was actively encouraging him to stay that way. Who do you think is helping him stay isolated? Because what Lena found next would prove that Joel's healing was being deliberately sabotaged by someone he trusted. Armed with the address she'd found in Joel's journal, Lena drove through their upscale neighborhood with a new sense of purpose. She'd always thought she knew every street, every house, every family in their area. But apparently, she'd been living just 2 streets away from Joel's biggest secret. The house was smaller than their mansion, but still beautiful. A cozy 2-story with a well-maintained garden and children's bikes scattered on the front porch. Lena parked across the street and waited, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. At 3:30 p.m., right when elementary school let out, she saw her. The woman from the Facebook photo walked out of the house wearing casual clothes and carrying a backpack. She looked older than in the yearbook pictures, but there was no mistaking those eyes. This was definitely Zulema Rodriguez, or whoever she was pretending to be now. Lena watched as the woman got into a silver Honda and drove toward the local elementary school. Without thinking, Lena followed her. She needed to see this for herself, needed to understand what was really going on. At the school, Zulema parked and walked to the pickup area where dozens of parents were waiting for their children. She looked comfortable, familiar, like she'd done this routine hundreds of times before. When the school bell rang, kids started pouring out of the building. Lena watched as Zulema's face lit up, scanning the crowd for someone specific. And then Lena saw him. A little boy, maybe 5 years old, came running towards Zulema with his backpack bouncing behind him. He had Joel's dark hair, Joel's strong jawline, and most shocking of all, Joel's distinctive green eyes. "Mama!" the boy called out, jumping into Zulema's arms. Lena felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. The boy was calling her mama. This wasn't just about Joel's past. This was about his present. His very real, very alive present. She watched as Zulema helped the boy in her car, buckled his seatbelt, and drove away like any normal mother picking up her child from school. The whole scene looked so natural, so routine, that Lena realized this had been going on for years. Joel had a son. A living, breathing son with a woman everyone thought was dead. Lena followed them back to the house, her mind racing with questions. How long had Joel known about the boy? Was he supporting them financially? Did he visit? Was this why he couldn't touch her, because he was already committed to another family? As she sat in her car, trying to process everything she'd witnessed, the little boy ran out to play in the front yard. He was laughing, carefree, completely unaware that his existence was about to destroy someone else's world. How would you react to finding your husband's secret family? Because Lena was about to confront the woman who held all the answers. Lena sat in her car for 20 minutes, gathering the courage to knock on that door. What do you say to a woman who's supposed to be dead? What do you say to the mother of your husband's secret child? Finally, she walked up to the front porch and rang the doorbell. When Zulema opened the door, her face went completely white. "Oh my God," Zulema whispered, gripping the doorframe. "You're Lena, Joel's wife, and you're supposed to be dead," Lena replied, surprised by how calm her own voice sounded. They stared at each other for a moment, two women connected by the same man in completely different ways. Finally, Zulema stepped aside and invited her in. The house was warm and lived in, with family photos covering every surface and children's toys scattered around the living room. It felt like a real home, something Lena's mansion had never managed to achieve. "I know you have questions," Zulema said, sitting across from her. "I've been wondering when this day would come." "Start with the obvious one," Lena said. "Everyone thinks you're dead." Zulema laughed bitterly. "Sometimes I wish I was. Do you know what it's like to live under a fake name? To never be able to contact your family? To watch your own mother cry at your fake funeral? Why would you do that?" "Because Joel convinced me it was the only way to protect our son." The words hit Lena like a slap. "Our son, Marcus. He's 5 now. Joel is his father, but he's never been allowed to be his dad." Lena felt dizzy. Allowed by who? His therapist, Dr. Morrison. She convinced Joel that staying away from us was the only way to keep us safe, that his presence in our lives would somehow hurt us. That's insane. Is it? Zulema's voice got sharper. "Joel told me about his problem, how he can't touch you, how he keeps everyone at a distance. Dr. Morrison convinced him that physical intimacy leads to destruction, that he's too dangerous to be around the people he loves." Lena's mind was racing. "But you two were together. You had a child together. We were teenagers. We made mistakes. When I got pregnant, Joel was terrified. Dr. Morrison told him that becoming a father would be the worst thing he could do to a child, that he needed to choose between destroying our lives or protecting us by staying away. So you fake your death?" Dr. Morrison arranged everything. New identity, new life, monthly payments to keep us comfortable. Joel thinks he's protecting us, but really, he's just isolating himself from everyone who could make him happy. Lena felt anger building in her chest. "And you went along with this?" "I was 18 and pregnant. I didn't know what else to do." Dr. Morrison made it sound like Joel was mentally unstable, like he might hurt us if we stayed in his life. "But you're still taking his money." Zulema's face hardened. "That money is for Marcus. Joel's son deserves to be supported by his father, even if his father is too messed up to be present. Is financial support enough? Or should he have told Lena?" Because what Zulema revealed next would prove that Dr. Morrison's manipulation went deeper than anyone realized. "I need to tell you something about Joel," Zulema said, her voice getting quieter. "Something that might help you understand why he's the way he is." Lena leaned forward, desperate for answers. "We were 17 when it happened. Joel was different back then, warm, affectionate, always touching and hugging people. He was the kind of guy who made everyone feel special just by being around him." "What changed?" Zulema stood up and walked to the window, looking out at her son playing in the backyard. "There was a party at my friend's house. Joel and I had been dating for 2 years, and we were planning to go to college together. Everything was perfect, but Joel had been drinking. Not drunk, just relaxed. We ended up in one of the bedrooms, and things got intense. I told him I wasn't ready, that I wanted to wait until we were older. And he stopped. He respected my decision completely." Lena was confused. "That sounds like he did the right thing." "He did. But later that night, some of the guys at the party started making fun of him, calling him weak, saying he wasn't a real man if he couldn't close the deal with his own girlfriend. Stupid teenage boy stuff. Kids say cruel things." Joel took it to heart. He came back to the room where I was sleeping, and he didn't stop when I asked him to. He wasn't violent or angry. He just kept saying he needed to prove he was man enough, that he couldn't be weak anymore. Lena's heart sank. "Oh, Zulema." When I woke up the next morning, Joel was gone. I found him 3 days later, sitting in his car outside that old motel. He was sobbing, saying he'd become a monster, that he destroyed the person he loved most. "Is that when you got pregnant?" "Yes." And when I told him, he completely broke down. He said he'd ruined my life, that our child would be born from something terrible. He started seeing Dr. Morrison right away. What did she tell him? That his inability to control himself proved he was dangerous. That touching people led to him hurting them. That the only way to protect everyone was to never let himself get close to anyone again. Lena felt sick. "But you were both teenagers. People make mistakes. Try telling that to Joel. Dr. Morrison convinced him that what happened wasn't a mistake. It was his true nature coming out. She said he needed to spend the rest of his life making up for what he'd done. By punishing himself. She told him that every time he wanted to touch someone, he should remember what happened to me. That physical intimacy was just selfishness disguised as love. Lena was starting to understand. So when he married me, he was already programmed to see any desire for closeness as a warning sign. Dr. Morrison reinforced it by telling him that if he let his guard down with you, he'd eventually hurt you the same way he hurt me. But you said yourself that he stopped when you asked him to. The first time, yes. But Dr. Morrison convinced him that the second time was his real nature. That everything else was just an act. This is insane. Is it? Joel believed it completely. He turned his guilt into a prison and handed Dr. Morrison the keys. Can guilt really control someone for this long? Because what Lena was about to discover would prove that Dr. Morrison's control over Joel was more calculated than anyone imagined. I need to ask you something, Lena said, her voice steady despite the chaos in her mind. Do you still love him? Zulema was quiet for a long moment. I love the boy I knew in high school. But that boy died the night he chose to believe he was a monster instead of someone who made a mistake. Dr. Morrison did this to him. Dr. Morrison has been doing this to him for 6 years. Do you know how much money Joel pays her? Not just for therapy sessions, but for ongoing support and crisis management? Lena shook her head. $50,000 a month. Every month. For 6 years. Lena's jaw dropped. That's over $3 million. And that's just what I know about. She convinced him that healing would be a betrayal of his victims. That therapy should be about punishment, not recovery. She's been feeding off his guilt like a parasite. But why? Why would a therapist want to keep someone sick? Because sick people keep paying. Healthy people move on with their lives. The pieces were starting to fit together in Lena's mind. She's been sabotaging him on purpose. Every time Joel showed signs of improvement, Dr. Morrison would remind him about me. About Marcus. About how dangerous he was. She'd schedule extra sessions, prescribe new exercises and self-denial. Anything to keep him trapped in that cycle. What kind of exercises? Physical isolation. Emotional distance. He was supposed to write down every time he felt the urge to touch someone, then remember what happened to me until the urge went away. Lena felt sick. That's not therapy. That's torture. But it worked. Joel became exactly what she wanted him to be, a wealthy, isolated man who believed he needed her to function. She made herself indispensable. How do you know all this? Because she calls me every few months to check in, to make sure I'm still safe from Joel, to remind me that revealing the truth would destroy his progress. She's been manipulating both of you for years, and now she's doing it to you too. What do you mean? Joel's been writing about you in his journals. About how much he wants to be close to you. Dr. Morrison told him that those feelings were proof that he was regressing, that he was becoming dangerous again. Lena's blood ran cold. She knows about me. She knows everything. She's been monitoring Joel's life for 6 years, making sure he never gets too comfortable with anyone. When he married you, she saw it as a threat to her control. So she's been working to destroy our marriage. She's been working to destroy any chance Joel has at happiness. Because happy people don't need therapists who charge $50,000 a month. The front door opened, and Marcus came running in, his face flushed from playing outside. He stopped when he saw Lena, suddenly shy. "Mama, who's this lady?" Zulema's eyes filled with tears. "This is your daddy's friend, baby." Marcus looked at Lena with Joel's green eyes. "Is my daddy coming to visit? Have you ever trusted someone who was secretly working against you?" Because Lena was about to discover that Dr. Morrison's manipulation went far beyond just keeping Joel isolated. Lena couldn't take it anymore. 3 days had passed since she discovered the truth about Dr. Williams, and every time she looked at Joel, she felt sick. He was still going to his sessions, still letting that man poison his mind, still choosing guilt over their marriage. That Friday night, she waited for him in their bedroom. Not her guest room, but their actual bedroom where he slept alone every night. When Joel walked in and saw her sitting on his bed, he froze. "Lena, what are you doing in here?" "We need to talk," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "And I mean really talk. No more lies, no more excuses, no more pretending everything's fine." Joel's face went pale. "I don't know what you mean. I know about Zulema. I know she's alive. I know about your son. I know about Dr. Williams and what he's been doing to you for the past 6 years." The words hit Joel like physical blows. He actually stumbled backward and had to grab the door frame to steady himself. "You don't understand," he whispered. "You can't understand. Then make me understand." Lena stood up, her voice rising. "Make me understand why you've been punishing both of us for something that happened when you were 18 years old." Joel's hands started shaking. "Because I destroyed her life. I was supposed to protect her, and instead You were kids," Lena interrupted. "You were both kids who made a mistake. But that doesn't give you the right to destroy our marriage, because you feel guilty." "It wasn't just a mistake," Joel said, his voice cracking. "I knew she wasn't ready. I knew she was scared. But I pushed her anyway because I was selfish and stupid And what? You got her pregnant? So what? People get pregnant all the time. That doesn't make you a monster." Joel looked at her like she'd slapped him. "You don't get it. Her parents found out about the pregnancy and kicked her out. She was 17, Lena. 17 and alone because of me. So you helped her, right? You took responsibility." Joel's silence was answer enough. "Oh my God," Lena breathed. You left her. You left her to deal with everything alone. My parents threatened to disown me," Joel said desperately. "They said I'd ruin my future, ruin everything they'd worked for. They gave me an ultimatum. Choose her or choose my family. And you chose your family. I was 18. I didn't know what to do. I thought she'd be fine. I thought her parents would come around." Lena felt tears streaming down her face. "But they didn't, did they? She disappeared for 3 years, Joel whispered. 3 years, Lena. I searched everywhere. I hired private investigators. I was sure she was dead and it was my fault. But she wasn't dead. She was surviving. She was raising your son alone while you went off to college and built your empire." Joel collapsed into a chair, his head in his hands. "Dr. Williams says I don't deserve happiness. He says I don't deserve to be close to anyone until I've paid for what I did. Dr. Williams is a fraud," Lena shouted. "He's been keeping you sick for 6 years because you pay him a fortune to tell you what you want to hear. Well, I want to hear that you're a terrible person who deserves to be punished. It's easier than facing the truth and doing the work to forgive yourself." Joel looked up at her with tears in his eyes. "I can't forgive myself. I won't." "Then you're choosing guilt over me," Lena said quietly. "You're choosing to stay broken instead of fighting for us." Joel stood up slowly and walked to the closet. He pulled out a suitcase and started throwing clothes into it. "What are you doing?" Lena asked, though she already knew. "I'm leaving," he said without looking at her. "You deserve better than this. You deserve better than me." Should she let him go or fight for him? Because watching the man she loved walk away might be the final thing that breaks them both. Joel left that night without saying goodbye. Lena woke up the next morning to find his closet empty and a note on the kitchen counter. "I'm sorry, I couldn't be the man you deserved. The house is yours. Everything is yours. Please don't try to find me." For the first time in 2 years, Lena was completely alone in the mansion. No Joel getting ready for work. No sounds of him moving around in his office. Just silence that felt heavier than his coldness ever had. She spent the first day crying, the second day angry. By the third day, she was worried. Joel wasn't answering his phone, and his assistant said he hadn't shown up to work. His security team claimed they didn't know where he was. That's when Zulema showed up at her door. "Mrs. Harrison?" the woman said when Lena opened the door. Up close, she was even more beautiful than in the photos. But she looked tired, like she'd been carrying the weight of the world for years. "I heard Joel left," Zulema continued. "I thought you should know. He's not doing well." Lena invited her in, and for the first time, the two women sat down and really talked. Zulema told her about those 3 years she'd spent homeless, moving from shelter to shelter while pregnant. About giving birth alone in a hospital where she gave a fake name. About working 3 jobs to support her son while Joel built his fortune. But here's what you need to understand, Zulema said. I don't hate him. I did for a while, but I don't anymore. We were kids. Scared kids who made adult decisions we weren't ready for. Then why didn't you ever reach out? Lena asked. I tried. About 2 years ago, I got up the courage to contact him. I thought maybe he'd want to meet his son, maybe help with expenses. But that therapist of his called me back instead. Dr. Williams? He told me that Joel was too fragile to handle seeing me, that it would destroy him. He said if I really cared about Joel, I'd stay away. Lena's blood ran cold. But he was sending you money, through Dr. Williams. Every month, an envelope would arrive with cash and a note saying it was from Joel. But now I'm wondering if Joel even knew about it. What do you mean? I called Dr. Williams yesterday to tell him Joel had left you. You know what he said? He said it was perfect timing because now Joel could focus completely on his healing process. Lena felt sick. He wanted Joel to leave me. I think he's been manipulating all of us, Zulema said. Keeping Joel guilty, keeping me away, keeping you in the dark. But there's something else you need to know. What? Joel's been staying at that old motel. The one where my car was found 6 years ago. I drove by yesterday and saw him there. He looked. Zulema paused. He looked like he was planning to hurt himself. Lena's heart stopped. What do you mean? I think he's reached his breaking point. And if someone doesn't get to him soon, we might lose him forever. Would you save someone who chose to leave you? Because Lena was about to find out that sometimes love means fighting for someone even when they've given up on themselves. Lena and Zulema drove to the motel together, both women terrified of what they might find. The building looked even more run down up close. Broken windows, peeling paint, and a parking lot full of potholes. Joel's Escalade sat in front of room 12. That's the room, Zulema whispered. That's where everything happened. They knocked on the door, but there was no answer. Lena tried calling Joel's phone, and they could hear it ringing inside the room, but he didn't pick up. Joel, Lena shouted, pounding on the door. Joel, I know you're in there. Open the door. Still nothing. Zulema found an open window around the back of the building. It was high up, but Lena managed to climb through and unlock the door from the inside. What she found broke her heart. Joel was sitting on the floor in the corner of the room, staring at the wall. Empty bottles of whiskey surrounded him, and his eyes were red and vacant. He looked like he hadn't slept or eaten in days. Joel, Lena said softly, kneeling beside him. Look at me. He turned his head slowly, like it took all his energy just to move. You came, he whispered. Of course I came. I'm your wife. You shouldn't be here, he said, his words slurred. This place is poison. Everything I touch turns to poison. That's when Dr. Williams appeared in the doorway. I'm sorry, Mrs. Harrison, he said in that smooth, professional voice. But I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Joel is in a very fragile state right now. You, Lena said, standing up to face him. You're the reason he's like this. I'm trying to help him heal, Dr. Williams replied calmly. By keeping him guilty? By making him believe he doesn't deserve love. Some people don't deserve love, Dr. Williams said. Some people need to pay for their mistakes. And some people, Zulema said, stepping into the room, need to mind their own business. Dr. Williams froze when he saw her. Zulema, I told you to stay away from him. You told me a lot of things, she said, like how fragile Joel was, how seeing me would destroy him. But the truth is, you've been the one destroying him. I've been protecting him from the consequences of his actions. No, Lena said, you've been keeping him sick because a healthy Joel wouldn't need you anymore. A healthy Joel wouldn't pay you hundreds of thousands of dollars to tell him he's worthless. Dr. Williams's calm mask finally slipped. You don't understand what this boy did. He abandoned a pregnant teenager. He let her become homeless while he lived in luxury. And he's been paying for it ever since, Zulema said. But that's not your decision to make. That's between Joel and me. She knelt down beside Joel and took his hand. For the first time in 6 years, he didn't pull away. Joel, she said gently, look at me. He lifted his head, and fresh tears started flowing down his cheeks. I forgive you, she said. I forgave you a long time ago. We were kids. We made mistakes. But I don't want you to keep punishing yourself for something that's in the past. I left you, he whispered. Yes, you did, and it hurt. But I survived. I raised our son. I built a life. And now I'm asking you to build one too." Joel looked at Lena, then back at Zulema. "I don't know how." "You start by choosing to live," Lena said. "You choose to fight instead of giving up." Can love really conquer years of programmed self-destruction? Because Joel was about to face the hardest choice of his life. Joel sat in that motel room for what felt like hours, just staring at the two women who had every right to hate him but were instead trying to save him. Dr. Williams had left after Zulema threatened to report him to the medical board for malpractice. "I'm scared," Joel finally whispered. "I've been guilty for so long. I don't know who I am without it." "You're a father," Zulema said gently. "You're a husband. You're a man who made mistakes, but who can still choose to do better." "What if I hurt you again?" he asked, looking at Lena. "What if I can't change?" "Then we'll figure out together," Lena said. "But you have to try. You have to choose to try." Joel closed his eyes and took a shaky breath. When he opened them again, something had shifted. The vacant, hopeless look was gone, replaced by something Lena hadn't seen in years: hope. "I want to try," he said. "I want to be better." That's when Lena did something she hadn't done in 2 years. She reached out and took his hand. Joel's first instinct was to pull away, but he forced himself to stay still. Her hand felt warm and real and alive in his. It felt like coming home. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice breaking. "I'm so sorry I put you through this. I'm sorry I made you feel unloved when you're the most amazing person I've ever met." "I know," Lena said, squeezing his hand. "I know you're sorry, but I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me you'll get real help. Not for Dr. Williams, but from someone who actually wants to see you get better." "I promise." They sat there for a long time, Joel holding Lena's hand while Zulema told them about their son. His name was Marcus, and he was 5 years old. He loved dinosaurs and soccer and asked questions about everything. He didn't know who his father was, but he was curious about him. "Maybe," Zulema said carefully, "when you're ready, you could meet him. Not as his father right away, but as a friend." Joel's eyes filled with tears. "I'd like that. I'd like that very much." They left the motel together, and for the first time in years, Joel didn't feel like he was carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. He felt lighter, like he could actually breathe. The drive home was quiet, but it was a comfortable quiet. Lena kept hold of his hand the entire time, and Joel marveled at how something so simple could feel so revolutionary. When they got to the house, Joel hesitated at the front door. "Are you sure you want me here?" he asked. "After everything I put you through?" "I want you here," Lena said. "But I want the real you, not the guilty, broken version who's been hiding from me for 2 years." Joel nodded and walked through the door. For the first time since their wedding night, he felt like he was actually coming home. What does it mean to truly choose love over fear? Because Joel was about to find out that healing isn't just about forgiveness. It's about having the courage to build something new. 6 months later, Joel was a completely different man. He'd found a new therapist, a woman named Dr. Sarah Chun, who specialized in trauma and guilt. She didn't tell him he was a terrible person who deserved to be punished. Instead, she helped him understand that making mistakes as a teenager didn't define him as an adult. The change in Joel was remarkable. He smiled more, laughed more, and most importantly, he touched Lena freely. Not just holding hands, but real intimacy. Hugs that lasted longer than a second. Kisses that felt like he meant them. Conversations that went deeper than small talk about work. Their relationship wasn't perfect. They still had moments where old patterns would surface. But now they talked about them instead of letting them fester. They went to couples therapy together, and Joel learned that healing happens in stages, not all at once. The biggest change came when Joel finally met his son. Marcus was exactly as Zulema had described, curious, energetic, and full of questions. When Joel knelt down to introduce himself, Marcus looked at him with those familiar eyes and said, "Are you my daddy?" Joel's voice caught in his throat. "Yes," he managed to say. "I'm your daddy. Where have you been?" Marcus asked, not accusingly, but with genuine curiosity. "I've been learning how to be a good daddy," Joel replied. "And I'm sorry it took me so long." Marcus nodded seriously, then threw his arms around Joel's neck. "It's okay. Mama says everyone makes mistakes." From that moment on, Joel was determined to be the father Marcus deserved. He set up a college fund, bought a house for Zelema and Marcus closer to his and Lena's home, and began spending every weekend with his son. Lena watched Joel transform from a broken man into a devoted husband and father, and she fell in love with him all over again. Not the perfect, untouchable CEO she'd married, but the real, flawed, human man who was brave enough to choose healing over guilt. They renewed their vows on their 3rd anniversary, and this time, Joel's touch was free and genuine. When he kissed her at the altar, there was no hesitation, no pulling away, just pure love and the promise of a future built on honesty instead of secrets. As for Dr. Williams, he lost his license after 3 other patients came forward with similar stories of manipulation and emotional abuse. Joel testified against him, and for the first time in 6 years, he felt like he was using his pain to help others instead of drowning in it. Love isn't just a feeling, it's a choice you make every day. And sometimes, the bravest choice is to forgive yourself and start over. If you enjoyed this story about love, healing, and second chances, hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments. What would you have done in Lena's position? Would you have fought for someone who was determined to push you away? Drop a comment below and tell me about a time when you had to choose between giving up and fighting for what you believed in. I read every comment, and your stories inspire the content I create. And if you want more dramatic stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat, click that notification bell because I post new content every week. Trust me, the next story is going to blow your mind. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.